The night sky over Earth shimmered with countless stars, their light piercing through the thin veil of clouds. The air was still, and the world seemed quiet, until a streak of fiery blue tore across the heavens. It wasn't a meteor or a comet, it was something far more advanced. A sleek spacecraft descended from orbit, its surface reflecting no light, as though it were cloaked in shadows. The vessel slowed gracefully before touching down on the edge of an endless desert, a place that looked barren and lifeless to anyone who didn't know better. Inside the ship, Zenara stood tall, her slender frame encased in a suit of shimmering silver. Her eyes glowed faintly, like two embers burning in the dark. She was Valeth, a member of one of the most technologically superior races in the galaxy. To her people, Earth was nothing but another primitive planet waiting to be cataloged, stripped of resources, and added to their ever-expanding empire. But Zenara had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to prove herself. Among her peers, she was often underestimated due to her youth. This assignment would show them all that she was capable of greatness. The hatch hissed open, and Zenara stepped out onto the golden sands. The heat hit her immediately, even through her climate-controlled suit. Still, she felt no discomfort. Her people had mastered environments long ago, creating technology that could adapt to any condition. With a flick of her wrist, a holographic display appeared before her, showing readings of the surrounding area. Oxygen levels, temperature, radiation, and other data points scrolling rapidly. Everything confirmed what she already knew. Earth was weak, fragile, and unworthy of fear. Zenara took a deep breath, or rather, her suit simulated the sensation as it filtered fresh oxygen into her system. She glanced around at the vast expanse of sand stretching endlessly in every direction. The horizon blurred where the Earth met the sky, creating an illusion of infinity. For a moment, she almost felt small, but then she reminded herself why she was here. This planet might look vast and imposing, but it was nothing compared to the power of the Valeth. Her first task was simple: gather samples, document observations, and prepare for the extraction fleet that would arrive later. As she began scanning the ground, collecting bits of soil and rock, a sudden gust of wind whipped up grains of sand, stinging her visor. Annoyed, she activated her shield generator, creating an invisible barrier around her body. The wind howled against it, but she remained untouched. Primitive, she muttered under her breath, dismissing the storm as little more than a nuisance. But as the hours passed, subtle signs hinted that Earth wasn't as docile as she'd assumed. The dunes shifted unpredictably, swallowing her footprints within minutes. The sun blazed overhead, unrelenting in its intensity, even though her suit regulated her temperature perfectly. And then there were the mirages, strange illusions that danced on the horizon, teasing her with visions of water and life. At first, she ignored them, chalking them up to optical tricks caused by the heat, but the longer she stared, the more vivid they became. One moment, she saw a lush oasis filled with greenery and flowing streams. The next, it vanished, leaving only emptiness behind. By late afternoon, Zenara decided to set up camp near a rocky outcrop. Her ship's systems were running diagnostics after the landing, and she needed to wait until repairs were complete before moving forward. As she unpacked her equipment, a strange noise reached her ears, a low, rhythmic hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She froze, her sharp instincts kicking in. Could it be some kind of native creature, or perhaps an anomaly in the atmosphere? She activated her scanner again, sweeping the area for signs of movement. Nothing appeared on the screen. Frustrated, she dismissed the sound as yet another trick of this strange planet. Yet, deep down, a tiny seed of doubt began to grow. Was Earth truly as harmless as she believed? As night fell, the temperature plummeted, turning the scorching desert into a freezing wasteland. Zenara adjusted her suit automatically, maintaining optimal comfort. But outside her protective bubble, the world transformed. Shadows stretched long across the sand, and the stars above sparkled brighter than ever. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind. For the first time since arriving, Zenara felt alone. Her thoughts drifted back to her home planet, a gleaming utopia of towering spires and endless innovation. There she had always been surrounded by others, her family, her mentors, her rivals. Here on Earth, she was isolated, cut off from everything familiar. And despite her confidence in her abilities, she couldn't shake the feeling that this planet was watching her, testing her in ways she couldn't yet understand. As she settled in for the night, Zenara reminded herself of her purpose. She was here to conquer, not to contemplate. Earth was weak, and so were its inhabitants. Tomorrow, she would continue her work, gathering the evidence needed to justify the Valeth's claim on this world. But as she closed her eyes, lulled by the hum of her suit's systems, she couldn't help but wonder if conquering Earth would be as easy as she thought. The morning sun rose over the desert, painting the dunes in hues of gold and crimson. Zenara awoke to the soft hum of her suit's internal systems recalibrating after the cold night. She stretched her limbs, her movements smooth and deliberate, and stepped out of her makeshift shelter, ready to continue her mission. The vast expanse of sand stretched endlessly before her, shimmering under the rising heat. To anyone else, it might have seemed beautiful, even serene. But to Zenara, it was just another obstacle to overcome. Her first task for the day was simple: explore further into the desert and gather more samples. Her ship's diagnostics were still running, and she had time to map the area while waiting for repairs to complete. With her scanner activated, she began walking across the uneven terrain, her boots leaving faint imprints in the sand that quickly disappeared behind her. Despite the harsh environment, she moved with ease, her advanced suit shielding her from the scorching heat and biting winds. But as the hours passed, subtle signs of trouble began to emerge. At first, it was minor inconveniences. Her hydration reserves, which should have lasted weeks, started depleting faster than expected. She frowned at the readout on her wrist display, dismissing it as a glitch. Then came the flickering energy shield. During one particularly strong gust of wind, the protective barrier around her body wavered, allowing tiny grains of sand to sting her visor. Annoyed, she tapped the side of her helmet, resetting the system. "This planet is trying to wear me down," she muttered aloud, though there was no one to hear her. Despite these setbacks, Zenara pressed on, determined not to let Earth get the better of her. After all, she was Valeth, a race that had conquered countless worlds far more dangerous than this barren wasteland. What could possibly stand in her way? As midday approached, the temperature soared, making the air ripple like liquid. Zenara paused to scan the horizon, hoping to find some landmark or feature worth investigating. Instead, she saw only endless sand and something else. A mirage, perhaps. It looked like a sprawling city made of glass and steel, its towers reaching toward the sky. Intrigued, she approached cautiously, her scanner searching for any sign of artificial structures. But as she drew closer, the vision dissolved into nothingness, leaving her staring at empty dunes. "This place plays tricks on you," she said, shaking her head. Yet, deep down, unease crept into her mind. These mirages weren't random. They felt intentional, almost alive. Could Earth itself be resisting her presence? The thought was absurd, of course. Planets didn't think or act. They were merely resources waiting to be claimed. Still, the idea lingered, gnawing at her confidence. By late afternoon, the challenges grew worse. Her suit's systems began malfunctioning more frequently, forcing her to stop multiple times to recalibrate them manually. The once reliable technology now felt unreliable, as if the desert itself was interfering with its functions. Even her navigation module started giving erratic readings, leading her in circles instead of forward. Frustration bubbled inside her, but she refused to show weakness. She reminded herself that she was superior, not just to Earth, but to everything on it. Then, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the sand, disaster struck. A sudden sandstorm erupted without warning, swallowing the landscape in a swirling cloud of grit and debris. Zenara activated her shield again, but this time it failed entirely. The storm battered her relentlessly, grains of sand pelting her visor and clogging her sensors. For the first time since arriving, she felt truly vulnerable. Desperate, she dropped to her knees, shielding herself as best she could. The storm raged on, howling like a living thing. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours before the winds finally died down, leaving silence in their wake. Covered in sand, Zenara stood shakily, brushing herself off. Her suit's display blinked erratically, struggling to reboot. She clenched her fists, anger boiling within her. How dare this planet defy her? How dare it challenge her invincibility? As night fell, the temperature plummeted once again, turning the desert into an icy graveyard. Zenara huddled near a cluster of rocks, using them as a makeshift barrier against the biting cold. Her suit struggled to maintain warmth, its systems taxed beyond capacity. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, both physically and mentally. For the first time in her life, she questioned whether she was truly prepared for this mission, or if she had underestimated Earth completely. In the darkness, she gazed up at the stars, their light piercing through the clear sky. Back home, those same stars represented conquest and dominance. Here, they seemed distant and indifferent, reminding her of her isolation. The realization hit her hard. Earth wasn't just a target. It was alive, unpredictable, and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. And yet, despite the hardships, Zenara refused to give up. She was Vaelith, bred for resilience and adaptability. If this planet wanted to test her, so be it. She would rise to the challenge and prove that she was stronger than anything Earth could throw at her. The next morning brought no relief for Zenara. Her suit, once a symbol of her invincibility, now felt like a fragile shell barely holding together. The diagnostic screen on her wrist blinked sporadically, showing fluctuating readings that made little sense. She tried to recalibrate the systems again, but each attempt seemed to drain more power than it restored. For the first time in her life, she felt truly stranded. As she trudged through the endless desert, her thoughts drifted between frustration and fear. Earth had proven itself far more hostile than she'd anticipated. The relentless heat, unpredictable storms, and strange phenomena were wearing her down, not just physically, but mentally. Yet, despite her growing exhaustion, she refused to admit defeat. She was Vaelith, after all. Giving up wasn't an option. Just as despair began to creep into her mind, something unusual caught her eye. A faint glimmer of light on the horizon. At first, she thought it might be another mirage, yet this one didn't shift or disappear as she approached. Instead, it grew brighter, revealing a cluster of low buildings nestled against a rocky outcrop. Smoke curled lazily from a chimney, blending with the pale morning sky. It was a human settlement. Zenara hesitated, her instincts urging caution. Humans were primitive beings, weak compared to the Vaelith. But they were also unpredictable, capable of irrational behavior. Still, she had no choice. Her supplies were dwindling, and her suit's malfunctions left her vulnerable. If she wanted to survive long enough to repair her ship, she needed help, or at least resources. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer to the settlement. As she neared, she noticed signs of activity. Figures moving about, vehicles parked nearby, and equipment scattered around the compound. It appeared to be some kind of research outpost, its purpose unclear. A large satellite dish pointed toward the sky, while solar panels lined the perimeter, soaking up sunlight. Before she could decide how to proceed, one of the humans spotted her. He shouted something unintelligible, pointing in her direction. Within moments, several others emerged from the buildings, their expressions curious but wary. Zenara froze, unsure whether to retreat or approach. Before she could make up her mind, a woman stepped forward, separating herself from the group. "Are you lost?" The woman called out, her voice calm and steady. She was tall and lean, with sun-kissed skin and sharp eyes that seemed to pierce right through Zenara's visor. Her name tag read Dr. Elena Cruz. Zenara hesitated, then activated her translation software, which allowed her to communicate in broken English. "I need assistance," she replied, her voice distorted by her suit's speakers. The words felt foreign on her tongue, but they served their purpose. Elena raised an eyebrow, studying Zenara carefully. "You're not from around here, are you?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Without waiting for a response, she gestured for Zenara to follow her. "Come inside. You look like you've been through hell." Reluctantly, Zenara followed, aware of the stares from the other humans. They whispered among themselves, clearly intrigued by her appearance. Inside the main building, Elena led her to a small room filled with monitors, charts, and maps of the surrounding desert. She offered Zenara a seat, though the alien remained standing, her posture rigid and defensive. So Elena began, leaning against a desk. "Who, or what, are you?" Zenara considered lying, but the suit's malfunctioning systems left her with few options. Using simple phrases generated by her translator, she explained that she was a traveler whose vehicle had broken down. She avoided mentioning her true identity or mission, instead focusing on vague details about needing repairs and shelter. To her surprise, Elena didn't press further. Instead, she nodded sympathetically. "We get drifters passing through sometimes. People trying to cross the desert without realizing how dangerous it is. Most don't make it. You're lucky we found you when we did." Over the next few days, Zenara observed the humans closely. They worked tirelessly, conducting experiments, analyzing data, and maintaining their equipment. Despite their limited technology, they displayed remarkable ingenuity. One researcher showed her how they extracted water from underground reservoirs using geothermal energy. Another demonstrated how they predicted sandstorms by tracking subtle changes in air pressure and temperature. At first, Zenara dismissed these efforts as crude attempts to survive in a harsh environment. But as she spent more time with them, she began to see something else, a quiet resilience that defied logic. These humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving, adapting to challenges in ways that even the Veilith might struggle to match. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena invited Zenara to join her outside. Together, they sat on a rocky ledge overlooking the desert, watching the stars emerge one by one. For a moment, neither spoke, content to let the silence stretch between them. "You seem different," Elena said finally, breaking the stillness. "Like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Zenara stiffened, unsure how to respond. Did this human suspect the truth? Could she see past the mask Zenara wore? "I am alone," Zenara admitted quietly, choosing her words carefully. It wasn't a lie. Not entirely. Even surrounded by her own kind, she had always felt isolated, burdened by expectations she could never meet. Elena nodded knowingly. "Out here, we understand what it means to be alone. This desert has a way of stripping away everything until all you have left is yourself. But it also teaches you something important. That survival isn't about being strong on your own. It's about working together, finding strength in others." Her words lingered in Zenara's mind long after their conversation ended. That night, as she lay awake in the cramped quarters assigned to her, she couldn't stop thinking about what Elena had said. Was that why the humans thrived where others failed? Because they relied on each other instead of their tools or technology. For the first time, Zenara began to question the beliefs instilled in her since birth. The Veilith prided themselves on individual strength, on conquering and dominating weaker species. But perhaps there was another way, a path she hadn't considered before. The next morning, Zenara joined the researchers as they prepared for a day of work. Though her suit continued to malfunction, she found herself offering help whenever possible. She used her scanner to identify mineral deposits beneath the sand, sharing the information with the team. In return, They taught her practical skills, like reading star constellations and identifying edible plants native to the desert. As days turned into weeks, Zenara's initial disdain for humanity slowly gave way to grudging respect. These primitive beings possessed qualities she had never encountered among her own kind: kindness, cooperation, and an unshakable determination to endure. And while she still kept her true identity hidden, she couldn't deny the impact they were having on her perspective. Yet, lingering doubts remained. Could she trust them? Or would revealing the truth only lead to betrayal? For now, she chose to remain silent, biding her time as she continued repairing her suit with scavenged materials. But deep down, she knew a decision loomed on the horizon, one that would force her to choose between loyalty to her people and the lessons she was learning from Earth's inhabitants. Weeks had passed since Zenara's arrival at the research outpost, and though she still struggled with her suit's malfunctions, she had grown accustomed to life among the humans. Each day brought new challenges and new lessons. The desert, once a hostile adversary, now seemed like a teacher, revealing its secrets to those willing to listen. Under Alina's guidance, Zenara learned how to navigate the unforgiving terrain, relying less on technology and more on instinct and observation. The humans shared their knowledge freely, teaching her skills that felt alien yet strangely empowering. They showed her how to read the subtle changes in wind patterns to predict sandstorms, how to locate underground water sources by studying plant life, and how to use the stars as a map when all else failed. These methods were rudimentary compared to Valith technology, but they worked flawlessly. It was humbling for Zenara to realize that survival on Earth wasn't about having superior tools. It was about understanding the environment and working with it, not against it. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the dunes in fiery hues, Alina approached Zenara with an unusual request. "We're heading out today to explore a section of the desert we've never mapped before," she explained. "Want to come along? You might find it interesting." Zenara hesitated. She was close to completing repairs on her suit, and venturing too far from the outpost risked drawing unnecessary attention. But curiosity got the better of her. She nodded, adjusting her visor as she followed Alina and two other researchers into the unknown. The journey took them deep into the heart of the desert, where the landscape shifted dramatically. Towering rock formations jutted out of the sand like ancient monuments, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns carved by centuries of wind and erosion. Between the rocks lay hidden oases, small pockets of greenery surrounded by crystal-clear pools of water. Zenara marveled at the contrast between barren wasteland and lush refuge, realizing for the first time just how diverse this planet truly was. As they explored, Alina pointed out signs of life that Zenara would have missed entirely without guidance. Tracks left by nocturnal animals, nests built into crevices, even faint scorch marks on stones, all told stories of resilience and adaptation. "This place is alive," Alina said softly, almost reverently. "It may look harsh, but every creature here has found a way to survive. Even the plants know how to hold on to moisture during the driest months." Zenara listened intently, absorbing every word. To her people, planets were resources to be exploited, their ecosystems dismantled for gain. But here, she saw something different, a delicate balance maintained through cooperation rather than domination. For the first time, she questioned the morality of her mission. Was conquering Earth really the right path? Or would doing so destroy something precious? Their exploration came to an abrupt halt when one of the researchers spotted movement near a cluster of boulders. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a trick of the light, a shimmering ripple in the air. But then it resolved into a shape, a snake, coiled and poised to strike, its scales glinting like polished metal under the sun. The humans backed away cautiously, but Zenara stepped forward, intrigued. "It's beautiful," she murmured, crouching to study the creature. Its eyes gleamed with intelligence, and its body moved with precision, every muscle taut and ready. In that moment, She saw herself reflected in the snake, an outsider navigating unfamiliar territory, adapting to survive. Yet, unlike her, the snake belonged here. This was its home. "Careful," Elena warned, placing a hand on Zenera's shoulder. "It's dangerous." "I know," Zenera replied, rising slowly, but instead of fear, she felt admiration. The snake reminded her of Earth itself, beautiful, deadly, and fiercely protective of its domain. The group returned to the outpost later that evening, carrying samples and data collected during their expedition. As they reviewed their findings, Zenera couldn't help but notice the camaraderie among the humans. They laughed, argued, and celebrated small victories together, united by a shared purpose. It was a stark contrast to the cold efficiency of her own people, who valued individual achievement above all else. That night, unable to sleep, Zenera wandered outside, drawn to the quiet solitude of the desert. The sky stretched endlessly above her, filled with stars that seemed brighter and closer than ever before. She sat on a rocky ledge, staring up at the constellations Elena had taught her to recognize. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. The vastness of the universe no longer intimidated her. Instead, it filled her with awe. Her thoughts drifted back to the snake and the lessons it represented. Earth wasn't weak. It was strong, resilient, and full of surprises. And the humans, they weren't primitive. Their strength lay not in their technology, but in their ability to adapt, to persevere, and to care for one another. These qualities made them formidable, not just as individuals, but as a collective. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the sands, Zenera made a silent promise to herself. If she ever returned to her people, she would tell them the truth about Earth, not as a target for conquest, but as a world worthy of respect. But for now, she remained focused on her immediate goal, finishing repairs on her suit and ensuring her survival. Little did she know, her resolve would soon be tested in ways she couldn't anticipate. Because while Earth had taught her patience and humility, it also demanded sacrifice and loyalty. The days following Zenera's expedition into the desert were quieter than usual. The researchers at the outpost had grown accustomed to her presence, treating her as one of their own despite her mysterious origins. For Zenera, this sense of belonging was both comforting and unsettling. She had begun to see the humans not as inferior beings, but as resilient survivors who thrived in a harsh environment. Their kindness and ingenuity continued to challenge everything she had been taught about strength and superiority. Yet beneath the surface of routine and camaraderie, tension simmered. Zenera worked tirelessly on repairing her suit, scavenging parts from broken equipment around the outpost. Each day brought her closer to completing the task, but with every step forward, guilt gnawed at her conscience. She knew that once her repairs were complete, she would have to leave and fulfill her original mission. The thought weighed heavily on her, especially after all the humans had done for her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand, Elena approached Zenera with an uncharacteristically serious expression. "We need to talk," she said, gesturing for Zenera to follow her inside. Zenera hesitated, sensing that something was wrong. Still, she complied, stepping into the small lab where Elena often worked. The room was dimly lit, the hum of machinery filling the silence. Elena closed the door behind them before turning to face Zenera. "You've been helping us a lot lately," Elena began, her tone measured. "And we're grateful. But there are things you haven't told us, things I think we deserve to know." Zenera stiffened, her instincts kicking in. Had Elena figured out her true identity? Her mind raced, searching for a plausible explanation. But before she could respond, Elena continued. "We've noticed your suit. It's advanced technology, far beyond anything we've seen. And those scans you've been running, they're not just mapping minerals, are they?" Zenera's heart sank. She had been careful, or so she thought. Apparently, her actions hadn't gone unnoticed. Still, she tried to deflect. I don't understand what you mean. Alina sighed, shaking her head. Look, I'm not accusing you of anything. But if you're planning something, if you're here for reasons other than survival, you owe it to us to be honest. For a moment, Zenera considered lying. She could fabricate another story, maintain her cover until her ship was ready. But the sincerity in Alina's voice stopped her. These humans had trusted her, shared their knowledge and resources without question. Could she really betray that trust? Taking a deep breath, Zenera activated her translation software, choosing her words carefully. You're right, she admitted. I haven't been truthful. I'm not human. My people sent me here to assess Earth, to determine its value for conquest. Alina's eyes widened, but to Zenera's surprise, she didn't react with fear or anger. Instead, she nodded slowly, as if she had suspected as much. And what did you find? She asked quietly. I found. Zenera trailed off, struggling to put her thoughts into words. I found strength, resilience, things my people don't understand. We see weakness where there is none. If I return and report back, Earth will be destroyed, or worse, exploited. The weight of her confession hung heavy in the air. Alina studied her for a long moment before speaking. Then don't go back, she said simply. Stay here. Help us protect this planet instead of destroying it. Her offer caught Zenera off guard. Stay, abandon her mission, and her people, for Earth. It was unthinkable. Yet, as she looked into Alina's determined eyes, she realized it wasn't entirely impossible. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she chose Earth over the Velith. But fate had other plans. Just as Zenera opened her mouth to respond, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. Alarms blared throughout the outpost, and shouts echoed from outside. Rushing to the window, Zenera saw a group of vehicles speeding toward the compound, their engines roaring like thunder. Armed figures poured out, clad in mismatched armor and wielding crude weapons. They were scavengers, rogue humans who roamed the desert, preying on isolated settlements. Get down, Alina shouted, pulling Zenera away from the window just as gunfire erupted. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, shattering glass and sending debris flying. Chaos erupted as the researchers scrambled for cover, some attempting to defend themselves while others fled deeper into the outpost. Zenera's instincts screamed at her to run, to activate her shield, and escape the conflict entirely. But as she watched Alina lead her team to safety, risking her life to protect others, something inside her shifted. These humans weren't fighting for power or conquest. They were fighting to survive, to protect what little they had. And though they were vastly outnumbered, they stood together, united against the invaders. With a surge of determination, Zenera made her choice. Activating her suit's systems, she stepped. He mapped out natural choke points, narrow canyons, rocky plateaus, and sand-filled basins that could serve as strategic locations for defense. Along the way, she gathered resources, scavenging materials from abandoned ruins and repurposing them into makeshift traps and weapons. Though her suit was functional again, she relied less on its power and more on ingenuity, drawing inspiration from the humans she had come to admire. As she prepared, memories of her home flickered through her mind. She thought of the towering spires of her city, the endless hum of activity, the cold efficiency of her people. For years, she had strived to prove herself among them, desperate to earn their respect. Now she realized how hollow that pursuit had been. True strength wasn't about dominance or superiority. It was about connection, about protecting what mattered. By the time the Velith fleet arrived, Zenera was ready. Their ships descended into the desert like vultures circling prey, landing near the coordinates she had provided. A squad of soldiers emerged, clad in sleek armor and armed with advanced weaponry. They moved with precision, scanning the area for signs of resistance. Zenera watched from a distance, hidden behind a ridge. When the moment was right, she activated her suit's camouflage feature, blending seamlessly with the environment. Then, stepping forward, she triggered a series of traps she had set earlier. Explosions erupted around the squad, sending shockwaves rippling through the sand. Confusion spread among the soldiers as they scrambled to regroup. Seizing the opportunity, Zinera deactivated her camouflage and attacked. Her movements were swift and calculated, each strike aimed at disabling rather than destroying. She used the desert itself as a weapon, luring the soldiers into sinkholes and funneling them toward narrow passages where their numbers worked against them. By the time reinforcements arrived, the squad was incapacitated, their leader captured. The commander stepped forward, his expression unreadable beneath his helmet. "Zinara," he said, his voice cold and mechanical. "You've made a grave mistake." "No," she replied, standing tall despite the odds. "The mistake was yours. You underestimated this planet and its people." Her defiance shocked him, but before he could respond, a sudden sandstorm swept across the battlefield, swallowing everything in its path. Using the chaos as cover, Zinera disappeared into the desert, leaving the Vailith stranded and disoriented. In the days that followed, Zinera returned to the outpost, battered but alive. Delina greeted her with relief, though concern lingered in her eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. "They know Earth is defended," Zinera replied. "It won't stop them, but it'll slow them down. And when they return, I'll be ready." Delina nodded, placing a hand on Zinera's shoulder. "We'll stand with you. Whatever comes next, we're in this together." For the first time in weeks, Zinera smiled, a faint, almost imperceptible curve of her lips. She had chosen her path, not out of duty or obligation, but because it was right. Earth wasn't just a planet, it was home. And she would protect it, no matter the cost. The aftermath of Zinera's victory over the Vailith squad left a profound impact on both her and the humans at the outpost. Though she had successfully delayed the fleet, she knew it was only a matter of time before they returned, with greater numbers and more advanced technology. The desert had proven itself to be a formidable ally, but even its vastness couldn't shield Earth forever. Zinera understood that protecting this planet would require more than strength or strategy. It would demand sacrifice. In the days following the battle, Zinera worked tirelessly alongside the researchers to fortify the outpost. They constructed hidden bunkers beneath the sand, equipped with supplies and communication systems rigged to send distress signals if needed. Using scavenged materials and Zinera's knowledge of Vailith technology, they created rudimentary defense mechanisms. Turrets powered by solar energy, tripwires designed to trigger explosive charges, and decoy transmitters meant to mislead enemy ships. Every effort was made to ensure the humans could defend themselves, should Zinera fail in her mission. Yet, as much as she wanted to stay and fight beside them, Zinera realized she couldn't remain tethered to the outpost. Her presence alone was a beacon for danger, drawing attention from those who sought to conquer Earth. If she truly wished to protect humanity, she needed to operate independently, a silent guardian watching over the planet while remaining unseen. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Zinera stood atop a rocky ridge overlooking the desert. Elena joined her, carrying 2 cups of water. "You've been quiet lately," Elena sighed. He mapped out natural choke points, narrow canyons, rocky plateaus, and sand-filled basins that could serve as strategic locations for defense. Along the way, she gathered resources, scavenging materials from abandoned ruins and repurposing them into makeshift traps and weapons. Though her suit was functional again, she relied less on its power and more on ingenuity, drawing inspiration from the humans she had come to admire. As she prepared, memories of her home flickered through her mind. She thought of the towering spires of her city, the endless hum of activity, the cold efficiency of her people. For years, she had strived to prove herself among them, desperate to earn their respect. Now she realized how hollow that pursuit had been. True strength wasn't about dominance or superiority. It was about connection. about protecting what mattered. By the time the Valeth fleet arrived, Zenera was ready. Their ships descended into the desert like vultures circling prey, landing near the coordinates she had provided. A squad of soldiers emerged, clad in sleek armor and armed with advanced weaponry. They moved with precision, scanning the area for signs of resistance. Zenera watched from a distance, hidden behind a ridge. When the moment was right, she activated her suit's camouflage feature, blending seamlessly with the environment. Then, stepping forward, she triggered a series of traps she had set earlier. Explosions erupted around the squad, sending shockwaves rippling through the sand. Confusion spread among the soldiers as they scrambled to regroup. Seizing the opportunity, Zenera deactivated her camouflage and attacked. Her movements were swift and calculated, each strike aimed at disabling rather than destroying. She used the desert itself as a weapon, luring the soldiers into sinkholes and funneling them toward narrow passages where their numbers worked against them. By the time reinforcements arrived, the squad was incapacitated, their leader captured. The commander stepped forward, his expression unreadable beneath his helmet. "Zenera," he said, his voice cold and mechanical. "You've made a grave mistake." "No," she replied, standing tall despite the odds. "The mistake was yours. You underestimated this planet and its people." Her defiance shocked him, but before he could respond, a sudden sandstorm swept across the battlefield, swallowing everything in its path. Using the chaos as cover, Zenera disappeared into the desert, leaving the Valeth stranded and disoriented. In the days that followed, Zenera returned to the outpost, battered but alive. Delina greeted her with relief, though concern lingered in her eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. "They know Earth is defended," Zenera replied. "It won't stop them, but it'll slow them down. And when they return, I'll be ready." Delina nodded, placing a hand on Zenera's shoulder. "We'll stand with you. Whatever comes next, we're in this together." For the first time in weeks, Zenera smiled, a faint, almost imperceptible curve of her lips. She had chosen her path, not out of duty or obligation, but because it was right. Earth wasn't just a planet, it was home. And she would protect it, no matter the cost. The aftermath of Zenera's victory over the Valeth squad left a profound impact on both her and the humans at the outpost. Though she had successfully delayed the fleet, she knew it was only a matter of time before they returned, with greater numbers and more advanced technology. The desert had proven itself to be a formidable ally, but even its vastness couldn't shield Earth forever. Zenera understood that protecting this planet would require more than strength or strategy. It would demand sacrifice. In the days following the battle, Zenera worked tirelessly alongside the researchers to fortify the outpost. They constructed hidden bunkers beneath the sand, equipped with supplies and communication systems rigged to send distress signals if needed. Using scavenged materials and Zenera's knowledge of Valeth technology, they created rudimentary defense mechanisms. Turrets powered by solar energy, tripwires designed to trigger explosive charges, and decoy transmitters meant to mislead enemy ships. Every effort was made to ensure the humans could defend themselves, should Zenera fail in her mission. Yet, as much as she wanted to stay and fight beside them, Zenera realized she couldn't remain tethered to the outpost. Her presence alone was a beacon for danger, drawing attention from those who sought to conquer Earth. If she truly wished to protect humanity, she needed to operate independently, a silent guardian watching over the planet while remaining unseen. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Zenera stood atop a rocky ridge overlooking the desert. Elena joined her, carrying 2 cups of water. "You've been quiet lately," Elena sighed, handing one to Zenera. "What are you thinking about?" "The future," Zenera replied, her voice soft yet resolute. She paused, gathering her thoughts before continuing. "I can't stay here, not permanently. My people will keep coming, and every moment I spend near the outpost puts you all in danger." Elena frowned, shaking her head. "We're safer with you than without you. You've already done so much for us." "I've done enough," Zenara countered gently. "Now it's your turn to stand strong. Trust in what you've learned. From me, from the desert, and from each other. That's how you'll survive." Her word hung heavy in the air, filled with finality. Elena opened her mouth to protest, but stopped herself, recognizing the truth in Zenara's statement. Instead, she nodded reluctantly. "If you leave, where will you go?" "To the heart of the desert," Zenara answered. "Somewhere no one will find me. A place where I can watch, wait, and strike when necessary." Elena sighed, staring out at the endless expanse of sand. "It's dangerous out there, even for someone like you." Zenara smiled faintly, though her expression carried no arrogance, only determination. "Danger is part of the job. Besides, I've learned something important during my time here. Survival isn't just about strength. It's about adaptation. And Earth has taught me well." The next morning, Zenara prepared to depart. She packed minimal supplies, relying instead on her suit's capabilities and the skills she had acquired from the humans. Before leaving, she gathered the researchers together, offering them one last piece of advice. "Stay united," she told them. "Work together, trust each other, and never underestimate yourselves or this planet. Earth may seem fragile, but it's stronger than anyone realizes, including my people." As she turned to leave, Elena stepped forward, placing a hand on her arm. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Zenara hesitated, then nodded. "Take care of each other. That's all I ask." With that, she walked into the desert, her figure silhouetted against the rising sun. As the sand swallowed her form, the researchers watched in silence, their hearts heavy with gratitude and uncertainty. Weeks passed, and life at the outpost slowly returned to normal. The humans resumed their work, fortified by the knowledge that they weren't entirely alone. Rumors spread of strange occurrences in the desert, malfunctioning Valith drones discovered far from their intended paths, abandoned ships found buried beneath dunes, and eerie lights glimpsed on the horizon. Though none saw Zenara directly, her presence was felt in subtle ways, a reminder that Earth had a protector. Meanwhile, Zenara established a hidden sanctuary deep within the desert, blending Valith technology with human ingenuity. She built traps and surveillance systems, monitoring the skies for signs of approaching fleets. During quiet moments, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from arrogant scout to reluctant guardian. Earth had changed her in ways she never imagined, teaching her humility, resilience, and the value of unity. Months later, the inevitable happened. A massive Valith fleet descended upon Earth, their ships blotting out the stars. This time, however, they didn't come unprepared. Their leader, a high-ranking commander named Xeric, broadcast a message across the planet, demanding surrender. "Your resistance is futile," he declared. "Surrender now or face annihilation." But Zenara was ready. From her hidden sanctuary, she launched a series of countermeasures, disabling key ships and creating chaos among the invaders. Using holographic projections and sonic pulses, she manipulated the fleet's sensors, convincing them that Earth's defenses were far greater than they appeared. Confusion rippled through the ranks as their carefully planned invasion unraveled. Xeric, furious and desperate, sent a personal transmission to Zenara. "You betray your own kind for these primitives." He spat. "They are nothing compared to us." "They are everything," Zenara replied calmly, "and you will not take them from me." Her defiance enraged him, but it also sowed doubt among his troops. Many questioned whether conquering Earth was worth the cost. Slowly, cracks began to form in the once unified fleet. Seizing the opportunity, Zenara executed her final plan. Activating a device hidden within her suit, she generated an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the entire fleet's engines, rendering them stranded in orbit. Without means to repair their ships, the Valith were forced to retreat, vowing revenge. but powerless to act immediately. As the dust settled, Zenera stood atop a dune, gazing at the horizon. The stars above twinkled brightly, their light undimmed by conflict. For the first time in years, she felt at peace. Earth had shown her the true meaning of strength, not domination, but protection. Not isolation, but connection.